Okay, so the next problem I wanted to show you guys was question number 23 from page 565, which deals with fractions, because I know a lot of times fractions really just confuse us. So my first step is I have to distribute a 1/8 to everything inside the parentheses. Now remember, way back in September when we talked about multiplying with fractions, this means 1/8 times a -8c, so a -8. If you think about putting the -8 over 1, we talked about cross reducing. These two 8s can cross reduce, and I'm left with a negative sign. So 1/8 times a -8 means -1c, or a lot of times we will simply write it as -c, plus 1/8 of 16. Again, think about multiplying 1/8 times 16 over 1. These can cross reduce. The 8 becomes a 1 and the 16 becomes a 2. So that's going to be -c plus 2 in my first set of parentheses. Now my next set of parentheses, the only thing that's different is I have a -1/3. So if I multiply a -1/3 times 6, again, think about doing -1/3 times 6 over 1. This 3 and the 6 can cross reduce. The 3 becomes a 1 and the 6 becomes a 2. So here you can see that I'm going to be left with a -2. So I am going to make sure that it's a negative, because a negative times a positive is always a negative. So this whole part right here would equal a -2. Then I distribute the -1/3 to the 3c. Again, think of it as, I'm going to just write my plus sign so I don't forget. -1/3 times 3. So -1/3 times 3. Think about putting the 3 over 1. These cross reduce and I'm left with a negative. So I'm left with a plus -1c, or that really does mean the same thing as -2 minus c. So now that I've distributed my fractions through, I'm going to go ahead and start combining all my like terms. So from this part right here, I have a -c plus 2. Then from this part right here, I have a -2 minus c. Remember, minus c means the same thing. You could also look at it as plus a -c. So I have a -c here. I have a -c here. I have a plus 2. And then I have a -2. -c minus c is not 0. I know a lot of us think it is. -c plus a -c is how we want to look at it. It's like having a -c and then another negative to add to that. So that's actually going to be a -2c. Well, 2 minus 2, that's easy. That's just 0. So you don't even need to put that down there. -2c would then be my final answer.